Welcome back to your weekly dose of encouragement on the Unashamedly You podcast. Today is a special one because this is going to mark the final conversation of our Valentine's and relationship series. This month has been one of my very favorites. I absolutely love gleaning and drawing from all of these incredible women and even the couple with the Robinettes that shared on the podcast this month. So, over these past few weeks, we have talked about being in love and intentional in every single season. Marriage, growth, healing, commitment. And today we are going to wrap it all up and bring it together. So, whether you have listened to every episode or you are just joining us for the first one and you've got to go back and listen, we are so glad that you are here. Our prayer is that this episode leaves you encouraged and inspired and reminded that a healthy, lasting relationship is built one day at a time, one decision at a time. It is not just for 1 month, but it is for the rest of your life. And we are so glad that you are here. Hello, and welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast, a space to enlighten, encourage, and empower you to go out and unashamedly be who God is calling you to be. I am your host, Jamie Herndon. I pray you hear less of me and more of Him as you listen to today's episode. Let's grow together. We have an amazing lady that is no stranger to the Unashamedly You podcast. We actually had her before on episode 105. So make sure that you go back and listen to that episode if you've not yet, because it is so good. And I wanted to bring her on today because, we are talking about marriage and we're talking about all of the things relationship wise going on in the month of February, and also how much it affects your children. And I have watched this couple, I have watched them with their children, I've watched them in their marriage, and to see how confident that their kids are and to see how much that they love one another. And it truly bleeds over into your family. She is so much fun. She is absolute blast. She is kind, loving. I am just so thrilled to have her back with us today on the podcast. Brandy Currie, welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast again.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited anytime I get to hang out with you, Sister Jamie.
I'm excited anytime that you are willing to hang out with me, and especially whenever you're willing to pour into us on the podcast. I'm so excited about that. Before we dive in, take a moment, tell us a little bit about you.
All right. So, my name is Brandy Currie. I'm married to Donald Currie, the most amazing, best looking man there is around. And we are coming up on 30 years of marriage. That is so crazy. And I know most people are like, oh my word, what did you do? Get married at like 10? But no, no, I did not get married at 10. And it's crazy. Seems like I've been with him forever, but at the same time, like it's just been a blink of an eye, and all this time and all the things that God has done has passed us by. I'm just thankful for him. I have 3 children and a daughter-in-law. So I have Noah and Carrie. I just had my first grandson, woohoo, first grandbaby, Hudson, and he is 5 months old, and we're loving that. That's definitely a whole new thing for our family. And then I have Luke is our middle one, and he's 23. And then Libby is the baby, and she's not really a baby anymore. She'll be 19 in a couple weeks. So I have them ranging from one's about to turn 27, I think in 2 weeks, no, 3 weeks. And then the littlest one turns 19. And I don't know. We have a lot of birthdays in March. So they're coming up, I think, 2 weeks. So just thankful for what the Lord's doing for them and how he's using them in the ministry. And my husband and I, we work for Souls Harbor First Pentecostal Church. My husband is the executive pastor there. And then we both administrate over our school, Souls Harbor Christian Academy. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of decades. And the Lord has allowed us to be here and be a part of this, and just so thankful for what God's done and what he's going to do.
Your grandbaby is so cute.
He is so cute.
I love getting to keep up with him on Instagram. That's fun to be able to do that.
He's such a chunker.
He is. He's getting so big.
Yeah.
I saw he just took his first flight. They
Yes.
posted that. So
Yes, we prayed a lot through that because our family loves to travel. We love being out and about. Carrie's a little more of a homebody, but she, she enjoys going with us as well. And so when the baby came, we're like, okay, when do we get to do another family trip? So this was kind of like that inauguration trip, like to see how he did. And he was a champ. I mean, he was a champ all the way through and through. We got them for Christmas. We got them TSA pre-approved so that it would be easier, and they'd want to go. And it was like she just wore him right through security, and she said he did amazing on the flight there and the flight back. So I'm very thankful.
that's so good. So you said you are coming up on 30 years of marriage. That is incredible. That's amazing. I love hearing that and seeing that. And I do agree. You do look like you got married at 10. I cannot believe that you are old enough
I really don't, but thank you for saying that. I feel that way. Inside you don't feel like you age at all, until you look at the mirror and you're like, "Oh my word."
I
Uh,
feel the I feel the same until I hear my knees and then I'm like, 40 really here.
I love that.
Coming with the creek.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your love story and share just a snippet of that, and then we'll dive into some deeper things.
All right, so I'll try to do this quick. I'll do the abbreviated version, but Donnie and I actually grew up in like the same area. Okay, so we help here at Souls Harbor Christian Academy and First Pentecostal Church, and that's in Bellevue. Now, Bellevue is already small, but there is a little neighboring town called Oxford that's even smaller and so rural. And so we both kind of grew up, and so we went to high school together, but we were definitely not in the same circles. Like I knew of him, I knew who he was. I also knew his family. Turns out we found out like many moons later that his Nana actually was there the day my mom brought me home from the hospital. So like, small world, but at the same time, we really weren't connected. And so we both came Donnie had been in and out of church with his family for a while, and I think he was a sophomore, a year apart. So he was a sophomore in high school when he came back to the Lord and really started living for the Lord. Well, my dad was a backslider. He backslid at 16. And I think I've shared my testimony with you before, probably on the last one. So I didn't know really anything, but my senior year of high school, my parents were getting a divorce, and God just stepped in an amazing way and put our family back together. And that's when I started, kind of figuring out all of these things about not just about God and what God had for me and truth but kind of putting things together about, who was this church here and that and how that kind of thing, just becoming more aware. Well, in the middle of all that, when I was coming back, like we had no youth group at the church I came to know the Lord in. Like, it was my cousins. That's it. It's like 5 of us, 7 of us, something like that. And so if the youth group did anything, it was like me and all my cousins. And, so my great aunt, who had been praying for my dad to come back to truth for years, decades, she was best friends with Donnie's Nana. So I know this is kind of crazy, but they talked. You know how, elderly people, they make that every day they were on the phone together and they just chat it up, chat it up. So anyway, my Aunt Lois kept telling my Nana, you need to get your grandson to get a group of young people from your church to come and hang out with this group that we're starting to have, because they hadn't had young people before, but God was doing a work and revival was happening. So now all of a sudden they have young people. And so Nana Powell kept picking at Donnie, because he lived with her at the time, and saying, you need to get a group of people and go down and visit that church, there in Oxford, and help them out. And so finally one day he just, relented and said, okay, Nana, I'm going to get a group of young people and we're going to go down and visit their church service. And they did. And then like he came again with a group, and we all went out to eat together. And then they came again as a group, and we did something else. I forget that we went and did as a group. And then one day he just showed up, just him. And I figured out, oh, he might be interested. And so that's kind of how things started. So I don't know. The Lord is good. We laugh about it now, all the ways that we kind of missed each other all throughout, but I can't imagine being with anybody else. I'm very thankful.
So, if you're a grandparent listening to this and you're keeping on your your grand
Yes.
just keep on.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're a young person listening, pay attention to what grandma and aunt has to say because sometimes it might be important.
That's exactly right. He says that when he first started coming down, he came down to make sure that he was, doing what his grandma wanted. Then once he came down, he thought, "Oh, I know a guy that might would like this girl." And so he actually started bringing another guy like with them with the group, like thinking that. But then probably about the fourth or fifth time, he just showed up by himself, and I was like, "Oh, where's everybody else?" And he's like, "Oh, they're all busy. I just thought I'd come down and fellowship." It's like, okay.
Come on down to fellowship. Sounds like
Yes.
a good idea.
I love her.
So I had mentioned before your relationship with your husband. If you know the Currys at all, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't know them, I'll explain a little bit. They are loving in their relationship. They're fun, all the things. It bleeds over into your kids, all three of them. They're all three fun. They're all three loving. I always tell after we leave hanging out with the Currys, Matt and I are always like, okay, our kids have to act like their kids. Like, how can we make them love each other like this? They're funny, they pick on each other, but they love each other. They love being together, love being around one another. And that's amazing. You don't always see that, especially when as your kids are grown. You know, your oldest son's married, he's got a child, your middle son, they're grown kids. And they still want to hang out with their parents, one, which is very big goals for me.
Yeah.
And 2, they all wanna hang out together. They don't mind going and doing things together, and I love that, absolutely love it. But it's proof to me that the atmosphere that was in your home and how you all were together, that is why your children are the way that they are. You created what you have created does not happen by accident. It is intentional. So, what would you say is a way that you and your husband have worked together to create a marriage that honors love, respect, and honors fun?
All right. So remember I said a little bit ago that when I came to know the Lord, my mom and dad were in the middle of getting a divorce. Like we were living in the same house, but we had split that house and said, I'm not talking to you, you're not talking to me, you know. And that was not the first time that my mom and dad had been that close to divorce. I can remember lots of times, big fights. I can remember and Donnie, his mom and dad actually were divorced and remarried a couple times. And so I think that when we had both of us had such a huge change in our life with God coming into our life and becoming a part of our life, we just I just sold out to that. And I feel like Donnie did the same thing. I was just so thankful to have this in my life. And then when we met, we known each other, but when we started putting our lives together, we just I think made the decision that if God had done this, then we wanted God to be like, I wanted to model whoever I could that had that spiritual aspect, you know what I mean? And so marriage to me and to us first and foremost, and I know this sounds it sounds so crazy because it's not like I didn't have all the flutters. So I don't want any listeners to feel like, okay, I just picked out this mate and because we wanted something that was spiritual. I definitely had. I still my heart flips when he walks in a room. So all of that, obviously was definitely a part. But we just were in a place in our life still when we met that God had done this amazing, beautiful thing, and neither one of us wanted to mess that up. And so if all that had happened over that last year or two with us converting the way we did, that was all spiritual, then we started looking at marriage and it is 100% spiritual. And I feel like sometimes people forget because marriage is it's for sure 100% a flesh thing too. I totally get that. My love language is touch, so I'm all about that part. But it is also God created it. He knew Adam needed this helpmeet. And I think sometimes we forget about that scripture, Galatians 3 and 3, that says, "Are you so foolish? Having begun in the spirit, are you now made perfect in the flesh?" That sometimes some of the most important things like our relationship with our spouse, our marriage, or our relationship with our children, all of these things are spiritual things. And then we try to sometimes just do it on our own. So, first and foremost, I feel like we always try to remember that our marriage is a reflection of our walk with God. Um, Another thing that to me is huge and what we've tried to show our children and portray in front of our children is that marriage is also commitment and it's work. And I think a lot of times, I think that I wanted my kids to see that. But even through that, we have all kinds of fun. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's 100% a true commitment. In Matthew 19:5 and 6 says, and said, "For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and the twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man or woman put asunder." And so, for us, um, when we decided this is it, there was never, and that had been threatened and had been done in both relationships that we were the closest to. And for us, that was not even an option. And this was a lifetime contract. This was a lifetime decision. And the word says, let no man put asunder, or let no woman put asunder. And a lot of times we think about that like, don't let anybody come up and mess up your marriage. But it's also me. Let me not put that asunder. Don't let me get in and kind of mess it all up. And so for us, it was just, that was what we were going to do. Another thing that I think we have tried to display for our kids, but just something that it's just been a common thread. And I can tell you, Donnie does it a lot better than I do it. And probably that's why we've been married almost 30 years. It's a lot because of that man. He is just such a giving man. But I can remember we were getting close to knowing, okay, we're at a point in this relationship where we probably either say, okay, it's not, or this is the real deal and we're going to get married. So I remember we were getting close, and I remember in my mind thinking, all right, this could be the man that I marry. And so I was praying about it. I was getting very nervous about it. For me, I knew that meant moving churches probably and changing, a whole lot in my life. And I remember thinking, how do I know for sure, like, just being very nervous. And so I just came up with this crazy idea, and I wouldn't suggest it for anybody to do, but I said, okay, God, I need to know. I need to know if this is the right thing. And so I am going to ask him, what does love mean to you? Like, I need you to define that. And I already had the answer in my mind. And in my mind, it was sacrifice. And I knew that it was going to take a give on both sides for something to work. And so I remember he came to visit us at my house that night. And while we were talking, I just threw the question out there and I said, "Hey, what if you had to define love? What is love to you?" And I'm telling you, he may have contemplated it 3, 4 seconds. And then he said, "I think love is sacrifice." And I was like, "Oh, come on, Lord."
You're my
Yeah,
man. Get on one knee.
you are the man. Woo! Uh, and so I think the Lord allowed that for me, like to just kind of confirm things. But more than that, I think the Lord was setting me up for knowing, look, this is going to be a little bit of work. It's not all about the heart flips and all of that. And I was not I was not raised in church. And so I could have looked at marriage as just a simple, pure flesh side, how, you know, friends that weren't in church had displayed it, how entertainment had displayed it, and all of that. And I'm so thankful that we have biblical examples in front of us now once I got married, and that I think God was like letting me know, it's going to take a whole lot of sacrifice. And like I said, Donnie is way better at that. He is so I feel like I'm submitted, like I'm supposed to be submitted, but he is just so easygoing, and he is so good at preferring the other. And he's just made things so much easier, I feel like, in our marriage for us. And that's what marriage is. It's sacrifice, it's preferring the other in front of you. It's the willingness to sacrifice. If it's just demand meeting demand, that's just a battle of kingdoms. And so we have to be willing to say no to ourselves a lot of times. And in that, I think, like you're saying, how do your kids, like, I think they've just seen that, but they've seen that and then seen that, it works and we have fun. And that's probably my last thing. So we've always said, okay, our marriage is going to be spiritual. Our marriage is going to be about the other, preferring the other. We're going to be sacrificial. And we're going to have fun. Marriage is going to be fun. And we're going to display that in front of our kids. And I, I don't know. When people ask me, Sister Jamie, what's the exact thing? And can you put your finger on it? And can you it's so hard, and I almost get embarrassed talking in front of it because I really don't feel like it's I'd love to say that we sat down and we wrote out this plan and we said this is exactly how we're going to do it and these are the results we're going to get. Um, but I just don't feel like that was the case. I think we went into something saying we need things to be a little different than what was showed to us. And so, what is the main difference? The main difference is now we have God in our life. We have this spiritual aspect. So, we're going to lean into that. We're going to find some really good godly examples to look at and to follow, like Bishop and Sister Farnham, and so many other couples in our church. And then we use that premise of sacrifice and knowing that we needed to give to each other. And then we knew we want it to be fun. We wanted to we wanted our home to be a place where our kids would wanna come back to, always.
And I think that should be everyone's goal. It for sure is ours. I'm like, I don't want to think about people talk about, whenever you get older and then your kids are gone. I'm like, no, I want it to be that they want to come back or they want to hang out or
That's exactly
be
right.
around us. And you do want to be around someone that is showing honor, respect, that and you're having a good time. And it's not whenever you come back home that it's a drudge.
Yes. Yeah.
I have never heard before whenever you said, "Let no man put asunder," that the Bible is also talking about self. I've never heard that, but it makes so much sense. Out of any man that or woman that could put something asunder, in most marriages,
Yes.
it is us that could do that. It's
Yeah.
the person that's actually married. It's not always someone else gonna walk into the marriage because if you are allowing someone else to walk into the marriage to put it asunder, that still was you that allowed that.
Allowed it. That's exactly right. And, we get in this thing, and so I'm just kinda getting up on the little soapbox again, but we get in this thing about, like, really, like, what marriage is not 50-50. I don't know why so many people feel like it. Divorce is 50-50. Hey, we're getting a divorce. You get half and I get half. That's what's 50-50. Marriage is 100%, 100%. It's giving everything you got to that person, to that life that you've committed to that family now that you have together. So it's not 50-50. It's 100%, 100% leaning in, giving your all. But man, what can come out of that? It's a lot of work, you know? It's a lot of work not to let me mess things up. Like I said, Donnie's a lot he's a lot better at it. But I've had to learn a lot in what that means to say no to myself. It's not about what Brandy wants.
So good.
Sometimes it is, but
Sometimes you
because
get
I have a good husband, but it can't just be about what I want. So,
sometimes he's sacrificial and you get your way.
yes, that's exactly right. I don't know. I don't even know if I answered your question fully, but those are
You
just
did, I
some of
loved
those
it.
common things that I feel like we try to always go back to.
I think one of the biggest things that you mentioned though is in all of that, you are being sacrificial, but God is first. You said marriage is spiritual. And
Yes.
I think sometimes we try to unspiritualize things that are very spiritual and
Yes.
very godly. And marriage is one of those things that is very godly in a very spiritual situation.
Yes.
And we unspiritualize it like it's not that big of a deal if something happens to this marriage when no, this is very sacred. It was not just a promise to your spouse, but you have promised God. This was a
That's
vow
exactly
before the
right.
Lord.
Yep. That covenant was made in his eyes. Exactly.
How can couples intentionally create that positive atmosphere in their home, like you're talking about, where your kids want to come back to?
Uh well, we talked about it. Have fun. I mean, we always try to have a good time, but you gotta speak life in your home. It is so easy to be negative. That's the easy road. It is. It's so with whatever it's about. If it's about each other, if it's about, like, for us, it was school. So when we go home, like when you bring your work home, we're bringing school home, and so we have to, or church things that are going on home, and so we had to be very, very careful, very, very guarded that we didn't just create an atmosphere of divulging all that and dwelling on that. So we just tried to make sure that we were always speaking life. If we knew things were getting tense and getting tight, then we had great examples of that. Sister Varnum, um and Bishop Barnum, they're amazing, both of them. But Sister Varnum, she is queen of having a good time. Like, you're not going to go over to her house for the first time and not leave without, like, playing catchphrase, or just coming out with your belly hurting because you've laughed so much, and so she was a great example for that. And she would come to us at different times, and she would say, look, because she could see the stress of just working at the church, working at the school, because it can be stressful. It's an amazing ministry, but any ministry can be stressful. And she would come and say, you guys need to go off. You need to go for a week, take your family, go do something, go have fun with them. And sometimes you can't always afford that. So we got really creative, you know,
Mhm.
especially at the beginning on doing some fun things together. And it's kind of like one of those things, like, yes, I could say at least, I was talking about this with a parent the other day. I could probably come home and I could give you five negatives, like, especially the other day. I think I had three things hit me before 9:30. And so I went over and did my lit class. And when I came out, one of the other teachers met me, and she's like, how's it going? And I could have almost started crying. And I was like, well, this, and this has happened. And so it would be really easy to make your home about that. But you have to make your home your haven. This is where we are. This is where we're gonna kind of keep. And it's hard. It's hard. When I say these things, it's not like we have perfected them. It's not like I have to remind myself of that. And honestly, through the different seasons too, as your children get older, you have to kind of change that up a little bit. And if you're not careful, some things that were very easy, it was very easy for me to feel very guarded and like, okay, I need to be speaking positive. I can't speak about that stuff in front of the 4-year old, the 6-year old, the 10-year old. Well, now they're 18, they're 27, they're, how old is Luke? 23. And so they're becoming, like, when they were younger, we used to always say, you're not my friend. I'm your parent. I'm not your friend, right? Someday, I hope I am your friend, especially, well, with all of them. Let's say with Libby, because she's a woman, like I am. But really, I feel like I'm friends with all of my. I can call up any of them and just be like, "Hey," and just want to chat and hang out with them, or like, "Hey, come over, I just want to talk," kind of thing. So that's happening, like that transition now. I'm in a season of my life where they are starting to be that way. And they're working in the ministry right beside us. Their hands are on the plow beside us and we're pushing. So it's even harder now, sometimes to not want to just confide or kind of spew is what I say, oh, why did I do that? I didn't need to just spew out all the bad, negative stuff that had just happened with that situation, or whatever. So through different seasons, you have to be a little more guarded. And what we used to do to have fun with the kids is a lot different than obviously what we do now. It's actually a little more expensive sometimes now to have fun. But then before I could just get out a blanket and put it over the table and it's a tent and we can make s'mores underneath, you gotta go, like, get a little more creative when they're the age that they're at now. Now I'm like, have a separate, account just for keeping the family together. Like, hey, you guys want to go out to eat? I'll pay if you'll come. Hey, you guys want to go, visit such and such? Oh, I'll pay if you'll come. So we have the keep the family close fund that we work on.
I love hearing that because I always tell Matt that same exact thing. He's like, "What if we are, older and we wanna go on vacation and none of our kids wanna go with us?" I'm like, "Oh, they'll wanna go because 'cause we're paying for it."
I know.
I'm like, "No one turns down a free vacation. As long as you can make sure that we can pay for it, they'll be there." So we've got that in the bag.
Something that helps also is our whole life, our kids have I mean, like I was saying, now they're more of a push with our ministry, and they're all developing their own ministry, taking over some of our ministries, and pushing forward. But even when they were little, we made them feel a part. They were right there with us. And when you're united in a goal, kind of like when you're a team, you love your team, you care about your team. It's not about, this, it's about working together and that unity. And so when you've done that for years together and you've pushed toward a specific goal together and you've worked toward seeing something progress together, it kind of just starts happening where you kind of like and enjoy the same things because you're kind of in that same, motion. So
What are some big trust breakers that you have seen in marriage, and how can couples guard against those?
Okay, so the first thing for me, that popped into my mind, it was one of those kind of things, and then I actually went through the questions. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna run through these questions real quick, kinda like 50 seconds right here. Here we go. Tell me what your first answer is, Donnie." And we both gave the same answer for this, and we both said, dishonesty. Like, to me, our marriage has to be on everything's the truth. You I don't know, and it's gotta be the actual truth, not what you think. Like I was saying, like, there was a lot of things that I had in my mind that I had to kind of, like, work through, like, about what marriage was and what I expected, versus what's reality and what's grounded in God. Um, and so but once I kinda got through, like, to me, like, I feel like honesty is, like, that cornerstone of a good marriage. And if you break that, it's like you tell your children, so, like, I dealt with a situation not too long ago, not with my kids, but here at the school. And, everybody's gonna make mistakes. This little one had made a mistake. I said, "And it's done, and we're gonna ask forgiveness, and we're gonna move on." But building trust back, that just comes with that, and the Lord will help you and that will happen. And so for us, it was always about we are 100% always going to be truthful with each other. Like, I, I just feel like that's just such a foundational part of marriage is being honest.
Do you have anything on, or can you even talk a little bit on maybe keeping that trust with like phones? I hear that a lot.
Yeah. So for us, like I know, like I heard somebody just the other day, they were talking about like money, phones, all of these things. Like, but we've never done like somebody was saying, well, we have separate accounts, and I do what I want with this account, and we have several accounts like for different things. But I can walk in and I can access and know exactly what's going on with any of those accounts, and he can do the same. It's the same with our phones. Like, I do not have a phone that he does not have a password to. I do not have an account that he does not have a password to, and vice versa. And so, we just have always done it. Do I ever think he would do anything dishonest? Absolutely not. Has he ever given me any reason to feel like he would do something that he's not supposed to? Absolutely not. But why not have that safeguard where it just isn't? So he knows all my passwords. He can pick up my phone and look. I've never one time been afraid, or has he been afraid? And when I said, "Hey, can I see your phone for a minute?" There's not this like, "Ugh, well, this is mine and this is my, private thing." We share everything. And I know for some people that might feel like, well, that's kind of claustrophobic for me. I'm not that kind of person. I got to have my space. I have to have what's mine. And I personally don't understand that. When the scripture is very clear, when you become one flesh, you cleave to that partner. We are one now. And I get you may need to get in your car and take a drive. I'm not that person. I'm the person that as soon as I get out of like I do a college class a couple times a week. And when I'm out of my college class, I'm immediately on the phone. I can't even do the 25-minute drive from the college home by myself. Like, I've got the music blaring and I've got to call him, and I'm like talking to him, and it's nothing important. It's just letting him know how my class went, whatever. I just need, that time. I know when he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna run a few errands," and he will never make me feel bad. But I have learned that's code for I probably need about 20 minutes just to because he does like being alone, that kind of thing. But even in all of that and thinking you need your space, I we've never had, "This is my phone. You don't look at these messages." I I can pick up, I can read. We actually share the same Apple ID. We've done that with our kids too, where I can read any of their messages. They can, and they don't read my messages, but Donnie can read my messages. I can read his messages. I can read my kids' messages as they're coming through. So we're just very transparent. It just keeps at bay a lot of things that it keeps at bay the little foxes that would spoil the vine.
That is so good, and it is so important. It's just a safeguard, like you
Yes.
said. No, I don't think that he would ever do anything that would not be trustworthy or vice versa. I'm sure he feels the same way about you, but it's a safeguard. And
Yeah.
if you don't put a safeguard and a safety net in place for your marriage, then if as soon as the devil can find a way in, that he's gonna come in that direction.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
And it's the same like you had said with your kids. So we have the same thing. We share an Apple ID, and I actually just did a surprise party for Matt, and I did not realize everything is so connected, and I'm like, this is the only time I truly regret how connected all of our stuff is because if he gets on the laptop, my text messages go to the laptop, his
Yes, that's how it
just
is.
go to the iPad. It's
Yes.
like we can see anything. I'm at home with all the things. I can see anything at any given time. My computer, the laptop that has the text messages coming to is what he uses for work.
Yes.
And so, like, did you not see any text messages you promised come through the laptop that was my biggest thing is I'm like, something's gonna pop up and somebody's gonna ask a question or I'm gonna text something and he's gonna see it. But at the same time, I also think what a blessing that that was. We cannot hide anything from one another because we know that we have everything is right there.
Yeah. That's absolute. And again, it doesn't mean you say, well, that just shows you don't trust them. And I don't think that's true. We live out here in a very, like I was telling you, it's a little tiny like little tiny town, and we live way off from the road. And so I was talking with some other friends that kind of live in the area, and they're like, I never lock my house. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but like when you're way out and the chances are no one may ever try to uh, come in that house that shouldn't be in there. Maybe not ever. But if the door was locked, then they would never come in there. There's just that extra safeguard. And so I just think I think transparency is key. Honesty and transparency.
Respect is just as important as love in a healthy marriage. I think that a lot of times we see, you said the storybooks, Hollywood has made marriage one thing, storybooks that kids will grow up reading has made marriage another thing. Instagram, Facebook has made marriages another thing. And then there's marriage podcasts that has made all these things are like making marriage something that really doesn't talk much about respect and doesn't talk much about, being trustworthy, being honest, all
Yes.
those things, sacrifice that marriage really is and a healthy marriage really is. And respect is just as important as it's not just about being in love, but you also have to respect that person.
Oh, absolutely. And we know, if you get into Corinthians very much and you're reading the word, God has a set order, that he expects us to like fall under and to respect. And also, sometimes that's not easy for us in flesh, but I found that um it wasn't too long, well, it's been a while back. There was a specific thing that I was praying about in our marriage, and honestly, it was something that I felt like I was right about. And, so I know you probably can't, probably none of your listeners could, identify with that. But, I was having a really hard time with something. And it was because I really felt like I was right. But, as the wife, I need to submit. But I was like, man, but I'm right about this. And so I just, kept taking it to prayer and taking it to prayer. And honestly, I was praying like, God, you have to change his mind about this. You have to change his mind about this. And the Lord let me pray like that for a while. And then finally, one day, the Lord spoke to me and he said, maybe you are the one that should be changing on this. Like he just, whoa, just like dropped it on me. And maybe you need to pray this way. And it changed me about that particular situation. Like I was able to like surrender what I thought. And sure enough, the Lord was right and my husband and his wisdom was right about the situation. And it changed me about that. But it also changed the way that I prayed for him. Honestly, like I feel like it is so important that when I pray for Donnie, that I pray first and foremost. I felt like the Lord convicted me through that time that I wasn't thankful enough for him, like that I just needed to not take for granted that he was so easygoing and that he did love me with his whole heart the way that a man should love me. And I just started being so thankful. And so when I pray, I immediately just start with thanksgiving for him. But then I also started, praying specifically for God to not help him, Lord, give him wisdom because he needs to see my way because I'd been that way on some points. But God, give him wisdom because of the position that you've put him in. That is a very difficult position to be in to lead our family, what he does for our church and how he leads different areas in our church, how he leads the school. It made me like kind of, change that. But I totally agree with you. We have this whole thing about falling in love. And you said at the beginning, you've seen us. We are definitely a very hands like lovey couple. You know what I mean? I don't know way to describe that, but definitely, yeah, no, we display acts of affection. It's not like I know what it is to, to love him with my whole heart. Like, I could just gobble him up. So I don't want people to think, well, it's not part of that. But I do want to make mention, the Bible says in Jeremiah, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Love is an emotion, right? And when we start talking about, well, I fell in love, or for that matter, fell out of love, falling is a chance thing, right? But that's not respect. That's not what marriage is. Marriage is a choice. Respect is a choice. It's not a chance. Oh, I fell. It's a decision. It's a choice. Our heart and our emotions can send us down some really crazy, really foolish paths. And again, like I told you, coming out of the world and having to kind of work through that. Okay, no, that's not real. Like what was portrayed. That's not real. That's not reality. What's reality? Reality is what the Bible says. And when you can align with that and trust in that, and it just makes that love that much better. You know what I'm saying?
That is so true that, like you said, love is a chance, falling in love, like, but there's some choices that has to be made with marriage,
Yeah.
especially as I had said in the question is a healthy marriage. It's one thing to be married. I've seen couples that are married and I'm like, that is not the marriage I want. It is a
Yes.
toxic or it is
Yes.
healthy. It's not godly. It's not exactly what I want. But a healthy, godly marriage is something that demands choice. It demands something out of us more than just a chance and
Yeah.
more than just an emotion. I am madly, deeply in love with Matt, all the things, but there are some days that I'm like, "Oh, I don't like
Yeah.
everything you're doing right now."
That's exactly right.
But it doesn't change how I have to make a choice of I'm not gonna act on the emotion of being upset or angry or mad or sad or whatever. I have to act on respect, honor, praying that God will help change his and let God work on me instead.
That's exactly right. It's
Yes.
gotta ground us. Yeah, it does. Because we're women, and not I know not all women are the same, but we by and large, we're very emotional.
Very.
And I feel like God did that for a reason,
Oh, for sure.
And so my kids call me at home. They're gonna laugh if they listen to this, but they call me the sugar glider because I can jump so fast from one thing. My kids, they're always like, they'll just simply say when I go from one, like I'll say, "Did you see such and such, whatever?" And I'm like, "Do you think?" And then they're like, "Mom, sugar glider, like you just went from point A to point Z so fast." And it's because we are emotional. And what you just said is so important that you have to ground yourself, because, you know, I- I- it's just who we are. It's just who we are. We got to be grounded in what does the word say? No, I need to submit to him. It doesn't matter what my emotions are saying right now. I need to go with respect. What is the he has been consistent for 30 years. He has done this, God has done this, and I have to like lean on that instead of on the emotions. I remember the first time someone pointed that scripture out to me. It's been many moons ago. But when I read that about the heart is deceitful, it's like, oh, it is. Like, it'll make you do sometimes the craziest, silliest things. And you think you're doing it all in the name of something good, all in the name of love. But yeah, we got to stay grounded.
Talking about emotions and how we are emotional, and I'm definitely the emotional one. Matt is very much logical. And I always say, I feel like that my kids probably can appreciate that I do have a little bit of emotion
Yes.
and we don't run it on just Matt's logic. But at the same time, I feel like as they get older, they're going to be grateful for their dad's logic, not
Yes.
just that I was emotional. Uh,
Yes.
but how can we as couples communicate honestly and we can, especially us women, or, if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you, you're the emotional one. How can we communicate how we feel and these things without creating just conflict or even defensiveness? And I have to be honest, it's easy for me to get defensive. And then whenever I get defensive, I'm autumn and Matt's like, "Why are you responding this way?" And I'm already responding defensive, and I'm like,
Yes.
How can we communicate honestly without jumping to being defensive?"
So that's a hard one because I'm with you. I am 100% like you. I can very easily be defensive or my go-to is like when they start, I feel like I've failed. Like when he starts saying, well, done, 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 I'm like, oh, well, then I did. And he's like, babe, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this may be a better way that we can achieve this, or whatever. And he has to, like you said, he's logical when he brings that kind of brings us back. So one thing there was a scripture that I was going to get, and if I can find it in a little bit, I'll go back to it. But we, I, I am huge on communication, just in general. Sometimes I feel like the main problem is that we just don't communicate at all, and like we just let things kind of lie, so to speak, and we don't really talk about it, or we don't. Um, but then when we do, we have to be very careful that we're not. The scripture is like, what is it like? Railing against railing. It's like you're trying to. It's not about because I'm defensively. You can't let because they're saying, "Hey, I think we should whatever." And my natural tendency, and I'm sure nobody else is like that, is to like, well, and come back and say, "Well, oh, well, you." And if I find that scripture, I'll read it to you. But here it is. It's in First Peter 3:7, and it says, "Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous." Not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise, blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. And so, we have to be very careful, again, going back to what the scriptures say, um, but, that we're not just like you're saying, being defensive just because he gives me something and it's not even correction, but I immediately take it like correction. And so then I feel like, oh yeah, well, I can correct you. But marriage is not it's not a game where we take point values. It's not a competition. And so many times I think we look at it as a competition. I don't think we even mean to. I don't think, oh, this is a competition, but immediately sometimes when we get into these big moments of discussion, that's something that hurt me or offended me or I feel like didn't happen the right way it should have happened, whether it's about work because we work together or about a church issue or about something with the kids, you know, it's almost like you don't mean to, but it's like kind of like we're tallying, and he said, well, I feel like this. Oh yeah, well, I feel like, and it's like we got to get that one more point on our side and on our mark, to kind of even it out. And the Bible says that's not what you should be doing. You don't render evil for evil. You don't render railing for railing. You're not trying to say, well, it's like when you're kids, you're like, well, you have buck teeth. Well, your hair is ugly. Well, your hair, you know, but it's not even just, you can't get in this back and forth. It's not about, or even the other way. Like if he is right, it's not about me feeling like defeated and he's right. I should be thankful for the fact that he had wisdom to see that. But it's not always easy for sure. And I'm almost 30 years in, and I still can get defensive. So I know that's sad, and you'd like to think I keep thinking you get to some age, like some of our elders that you're just like, who even cares, anymore? You just finally get to that point where you're like, Oh, but so I think that's important that we don't take score. We don't try to, even the, like we gotta, but even more than that, for me, when you talk about communication, it's the importance of communication and how we do it. Also, I think it's important not just how I talk about my spouse, but how I talk to my spouse. And there's a lot of reasons why. One of them is because of my children. I need to be extremely careful how I talk about Donnie and how I talk to Donnie because, sometimes you can be saying all the right things, but it's the way you're saying it says a whole different other thing. I know that just from teaching communication skills to students. You're nonverbal. I can be saying to Donnie, yes, I know you're right. But if my kids see me, if they could just hear me, maybe that's okay. But if they see me, yeah, I know you're right. Right? Even my nonverbals are saying something to them. My nonverbals are saying to my children, this guy don't know what he's talking about. I don't want my kids not to be able to trust my husband and to think that he's not wise. So when it's time for him to go and give them direction, that they're like, well, mom thinks you're a little bit woo. So I have to be very careful, even if everything in me feels like, eh. Um, I learned that the hard way. Like within just the first few months of our marriage, I had things that would bother me, and you know who I'd run to and talk to about it? My mom. And so I would go to my mom and I would be like, I can't believe Donnie says, blah, 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 whatever. I'm a new wife. I'm learning, what it means for two to be one. And she never said anything, right away, like, well, that Donnie, you shouldn't. She would just listen. But I noticed pretty quick, like within the first month of that happening, that the way she loved Donnie, she loved Donnie more than me, by the end of it. But I just noticed, I knew she loved him, but she started kind of talking about him differently. Like she'd be like, "Well, why is he?" And I just was something she said one day and I noticed like, "What? Where did that come from?" And I had to step back and I realized I planted that. And I definitely do not want to do that. I never wanted to do that to my kids and to my children. And so I had to be very careful. But also, it's like what we were talking about earlier about let no man, but that includes self. The way I talk about him and talk to him affects the way I feel about him. And so, if I'm not speaking things that are good and I'm always just like, even if it's sometimes even if it's, hidden in, humor, how sometimes we'll be like, we'll talk and I'm all about funny and I'm all about making people laugh. But if I'm not careful and I'm always, making him the point of my joke or it affects you. It impacts the way even I feel about him. It impacts the way my children feel about him. It impacts the way my mom felt about him. Other church members, could feel about him. And now he's got a ministry. So communication, how I talk about him, how I talk to him, I learned pretty early on how important that was because I made mistakes in that area. Um, and then also just communication and just the way women are versus men. When we first got married, for some reason, I just thought he would have like this ability to know exactly what was wrong with me and be able to fix it. You know what I mean? And men by nature are fixers. And that's a whole nother thing. You have to worry about what you communicate because sometimes I just want to talk, but he wants to fix. So I will go home and say, do you know what happened at school today with this and that? And I'm just venting. And then I feel better. But then the next day, he comes in and he fixes it. And I'm like, what did you do? Like, I was just telling you, I didn't need you to go and have a meeting, or call all the teachers in. Help me. I had to learn he's a fixer. But when we first got married, I just thought, he would just know that. I mean, this is embarrassing, Jamie, but I cannot tell you how many nights we first got married. You may not know anything about this, but we would go to bed and I would be upset about something. Like maybe he just said something. He doesn't even realize what he said hurt me, right? But I'm laying in bed this time roll, you roll your back over where like you're putting that wall up both physically and emotionally. And then I would literally just lay over and like be crying, right? And sometimes he was oblivious. And so you know what I do? I just cry harder. like maybe he'd hear me, or I think I need to get up and go pray, and think. And then like the next morning we'd get up and he'd say, "Good morning, babe," and give me a kiss. Good morning. I'd be like, "What are you doing? No, you know, no, I, do you remember last night you said this?" And he's like, "What? Oh, but babe, that's not how I meant that." And if I would have just not been so emotional, been willing to communicate and just said, "Hey, babe, I don't know if you meant that way, but that kind of hurt my feelings the way that just came out." We could have probably fixed it. But instead, it's the whole like, or when I'm really ready to just kind of give in, that whole toe, you finally put your toe over like on that side of the bed, letting them know, okay, all's well again, we'll do it. And then also, Donnie has taught me a lot about forgiveness. Like he just like that. Like he'd get up in the morning and he'd just be like, "Good morning," whatever. And I'd let the whole day go again. Like, I just let it fester all day, like, I cannot believe he said that last night. I cannot. He didn't even I cried for, like, 45 minutes before I fell asleep. He didn't even know. He wasn't even sensitive to know that I was over there crying. Our whole marriage is gonna be shook now because just the whole thing all day, I just let that, keep going, whatever. And the Bible is very clear. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Like each day, you should make sure that at night you've communicated, you've kind of cleared the air. We're going to bed, and the next morning we're waking up, new day, new graces, new mercies. We have to apply those biblical principles over and over again. It's not like marriage is here and it's kind of like you said, set apart and it has a whole different set of rules. No, these biblical principles work for all things. Now, that's hard, just like it is in any area of life, to remember it and to apply it. And I've messed up a lot. But thank God he's willing, God's willing to forgive me. And Donnie has been so willing to forgive me, especially as a newer wife, and how much I had to work through. But even still today, I'm 52. Yeah, 52. And so that's a whole different season for me now, too, And so learning how to, poor guy is learning how not to step on any landmines and really, really set himself, up, and he's just so easygoing. I don't know if Brother Matt's like that. I feel like he probably a little more like but Donnie is he's a go-getter. I mean, he does circles around me on a to-do list, but he's just so laid back. And sometimes I need, in communication. I learned that too. I've pushed him before. I can remember one of the only times I remember him really getting mad in 30 years. I did it. Like I pushed him. Like I'm like, we need to get this out, you know? I need you to know, how much this matters to me. And it's kind of like, when you're fighting someone, you keep poking. I wasn't physically doing that, but I was definitely emotionally and with my words doing that. And I was just like challenging him, it's like, come on, we need to get this out. That's what people do. And he finally did let it out. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, we're not doing that. We're not unpacking that ever."
Put that back in.
Yeah. And still with him, it was not anything, major, but I just realized what I had done. So communication, and then, moving into when we do, we're not just trying to keep score, but we're trying to communicate to keep the relationship healthy. And we're not always going to do what's right. I have made so many mistakes, and I'm so thankful for forgiveness. And I've had to learn to be forgiving, like not to hold on to things and let it move, let it, move on.
It's funny, so many things that you were saying, I'm like, I feel like that you're just, like, telling my own story,
Yeah.
especially, like, the rolling over and then the crying,
Oh,
and they're just, like, start snoring, I'm like, "Oh,
I know, right? I want to
how
wake
are you
him up
asleep on
and
this
say,
when my
yeah,
feelings are crushed?" Like,
yes.
oh, it's so funny, but
And then, of course, the next day you realize, like after a day or two, or once everything's forgiven and you passed, you like think back and you're like, that was so great. Like, man, I'm so embarrassed. Like, why did I even think that was a big deal? But we do, sometimes we do. And we
yeah,
had to.
and especially certain weeks, I'm, like, really
Yeah.
emotional.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything's hurting my feelings, and he should just be groveling at my feet, and it's not easy for him to do that either, so we just have to work through it. God is helping
Yeah.
us, amen. Oh, I love everything that you're saying. Matt's probably listening to this to edit like amening you the whole time, like, "Yes, yes, tell Jamie all about that."
And learn their cues too. Like he's learned with me. Like when I'm mad, if you're riding, if you're driving, usually I'm a magpie. Like a car ride with him is like amazing because then I'm just like, we get that special time, especially it's just the two of us. And so we've been doing these like little mini coffee dates where it takes about 10 minutes, but it's 10 minutes of just me and him, you know, talk, talk, talk. Because we got a new Starbucks in town. So we'll just run real quick, grab a Starbucks. But that whole 10-15 minutes is just me talking to him talking to me without anybody bothering us or interrupting us. We'll sneak away right in the middle of the day. I've been loving it. But if there's something I'm upset about, he's gonna know it because I'm not talking. And instead, you do that look out the window thing. Like, because there's so many amazing things going on outside the window.
That
But
you've never seen before.
yeah, you're just looking out the window like that. And after about, 2 to 4 minutes of looking out the window, he'll say, "Okay, what's wrong? What did I do?" Or whatever.
What would you like to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, talking about that, you both are busy. You've got life going on. Everybody is busy. I feel like every season, I think that something's gonna slow down. I think after every holiday, life is gonna slow down. I'm always like, "Man, I cannot wait till this, Christmas season is over," and then boom, you get hit with snow season that you didn't expect. You get
Yes.
Valentine's, and then there's spring break, and, right now we have IM if you're a part of FBC and LR, and if you're a part of any church, I'm sure you've got some Easter drama things going on. It's like every single season of life is busy, and real month seasons that are going on, it's just life has got a lot of life.
Yes.
And staying emotionally connected through that is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, you have to be very intentional. Really, that's the word that sums it up. You just have to know this whole thing started with me, God, and Donnie. And as sad as it makes me, there's going to be a day where on many days I feel like it's just back to me, God, and Donnie. Now, I don't think my kids are going to go very far from me. It doesn't mean that, we want, but you know what I mean? There's going to be that time. And so I don't want to, I've always looked at that. I don't want to be starting over when we get down there. Right? I want it to be, that we have preserved this and grown this and, that kind of thing. But that takes in the middle of chaos, and I know all about that. Like what you're saying, we say so often in our house, Donnie and I will, finally get home from something and be breathing, and we'll catch ourselves saying, "Okay, well, if we can just get to," and we'll say, we're wishing our whole life away. I've felt that way about the kids a lot of times. Like, as much as I love the school and I love education and I'm a teacher, and I hated homework. I hated homework. And but as much as I know it's important, and I'm the kind of mom that I liked when my kids were on summer break. I was not the kind of mom that was like, "Oh, I can't wait till school's back in and then these kids are whatever." I loved when we were home and we didn't have to worry about that specific schedule and there was no, homework. But you could almost, wish your whole life away. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can't wait till the day my kids don't have homework. Well, guess what? They don't have homework now. But now they're in these new, and I'm enjoying their new seasons. But now I wish there's times, when I was, put on to bed at night and, doing all these, mom things that you don't get to do now. You get to do new things. So, so it's about being intentional through all of that and doing like what I was saying, like even if it's 15 minutes, you got 15 minutes, you can run, go get a Starbucks with me. And I know not all couples can do that, but we have, we decided a long time ago, like at least once a week, can we not just go get dinner by ourselves or order in or, we take advantage of other times. So like when all of our kids are at youth prayer, okay, you guys go to youth prayer, we're going on a date, you know, and taking, advantage of those little times. When they were real little, I was really nervous about leaving them. And then I finally left them one time with my mom. I don't even remember. I know Livy wasn't born yet. It may have just been Noah, but I think it was Noah and Luke. And we did an overnight trip. And I was like, this is amazing, after whatever. And so we try to do that, once or twice a year at least, where it's just the two of us that go. And again, I know everybody, you're like, well, that would be nice if you had the funds. But even if we didn't have the funds, I can get a 2-for-1 pizza deal on youth prayer night and have it delivered to the house, and it's just uninterrupted time of the two of us together. But you've got to be intentional, because if you're not, like you're saying, that wave of chaos will just one event turns into another event. Like basically, Sister Jamie, you just the whole year's gone. Like we're done. Like we're at the end of the year.
Right.
And that I know you're very busy, and you guys are right slap dab in the middle of all of the ministry and stuff that's going on there in Little Rock. And so it happens quick. Like, before you know it, you turn around and you're like, what happened to this year? 2026 is gone. And if you're not careful, that whole time that's happening, you're just busy checking off those to-do lists, and all of a sudden, like you said, emotionally we're not connected like we should. So you got to make, and then even the small things, like I realized it's been a while ago, but we were in this season where just things were nuts. Like I just felt like I don't know, we were running 100 different ways. And I realized one morning I got up and I was on the way to school. And I was like, man, I did not kiss Donnie goodbye, you know? And then I was like, I don't think I did yesterday either. Wait a minute. I think it could have been a week or so ago. It was the last time I kissed my husband goodbye in the morning. And so it just made me like, how could that even happen? And it just kind of freaked me out. And so I was like, no, I'm a very intentional now. I'm like making sure, every morning that I stop, I felt bad the other day because he was still in his prayer time, but I had to leave at that time. But I was just like, bye. Okay, bye. And I start running off and like, keep praying. Loving that you're doing that, but I got to keep, I got to go on. But I've just tried to be like even those little small things like that. And, making sure, every night, that it's the same way, and phone calls throughout the day or a text. Sometimes I'll just send them a text and say, hey, I'm missing you. I love you. That takes like 2 seconds, but it's amazing how much dopamine gets going when your husband texts you. I love you, babe. Miss you. Like when he does that kind of stuff to me, I don't know. Again, we're emotional, but I'm just like, my heart starts flittering and I'm so excited. And so, and it took like all of 2 seconds. So I think the main thing for that is just being very intentional. And I've not always been good at that because I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl. But I've learned and I've watched other couples that I respect tremendously. Um, and some of them even younger than me. We have our pastor from Dunellen, Pastor Daniel and Sister Lacey. I was her mentor in high school, but I have watched her raise two wonderful children, and she is so intentional. Like we'll be talking and she'll say, well, I made sure whatever. And I'm just like, why don't I do that? But it's just one of those things, like if you're not good at, it's magnified in other people. And so I just started grabbing little things like that and saying, what are some things I can do to be more intentional? She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing.
I think this goes with those small daily habits and that help you feel loved and emotionally safe. It
Yeah.
just like you said, kiss goodbye, phone calls, text messages throughout the day. I love those things as well. And out of marriage, I think everyone could say the biggest thing that you really want is to feel safe, emotionally safe. I know with me, that was a big deal because my parents, God has restored, but
Such a great story. You need to write that down. You need to write a book about that story.
I do. I agree. God has done so many amazing things, but being emotionally safe was what I was looking for in a marriage.
Yeah.
I wanted to know no matter what I did, you're going nowhere.
Yes.
And I feel like that those small
It's
daily
like we're the same person. It's insane.
it is everything that you're saying. I'm like, that's me. I do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Down to them bringing the toe over, like, okay, I'll barely touch your foot and see.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay right now, but you
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
move while the waters are troubled
Right. Yeah.
because I might get mad again if you don't. Um, but there are those I think that's what people overlook, or that's what's easy to overlook in the things you're talking about, well, if you went on a trip or a date night and someone may be listening to this and you're like, well, like you said, well, that'd be nice. Well, there have it no one starts out, or we didn't start out in a financial situation where we could just go off and take a trip anytime we wanted to or go to somewhere nice for
Right.
date night, but everyone can go somewhere and can do something. Don't allow excuses to take the place of those things that you and your spouse do. Y'all were doing something when you were dating
Yes.
together.
Yes.
What were
That's
you doing when you were
exactly right.
dating?
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you were like the littlest thing, like I would have went to McDonald's, and I still will go to McDonald's. Let's just go get a McDonald's French fry and ice cream and sit and eat. The Pastor Daniel and Sister Lacey, the couple that I was telling you about, they are like they prefer like the McDonald's. We always laugh at them. She's like, "Look, I like the trash food when we get our nights together." They're like, she goes and buys a couple of Tostino's pizzas, and they're good to go. And they could go anywhere they wanted to go. But they just that's fun for them. And he'll go get a dozen glazed donuts, or whatever. And they laugh about it all the time. But that's just something they've done, like to create, like you're saying, that say they know every week they're gonna have a date night, and they're gonna go get trash junk food and eat it up and laugh a whole lot together, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I am with you. That is what I need more than anything. Is like I just need to know you're not going anywhere. I just need to know you're not going anywhere.
No matter what, you're here to stay.
Yeah. And it's taken a lot of time, but he's learned that, and that I just need that affirmation, you know? And so some of that just comes with learning your spouse and knowing what will make them feel that way and feel safe. For me, it's like just I need you to tell me that, I need those words of affirmation. I need you to say, I love you. I'm here for the long haul, and make me feel that way. And when he doesn't, I remind him. I'll just
Same.
right. I'll
Like,
just say,
I need to know that you
just
are in
need
love
you
with me
know.
no matter if
And
I'm
he's always
crazy or
like,
not.
"Of course I'm not, that's not even an option." And I was like, "I know, and I do know, but sometimes I wanna feel it too, I don't wanna just know, I wanna feel that too."
Yes. And one thing that is so important is your children learn by watching. I love that you said, your children are gonna know how you respond or what you think about Donnie by your tone, your actions, and what you say back to him. That is not always easy to
Mhm.
respond in a kind especially if you're anything like me and apparently like her and I jump on the defense so easily. And like you said, he'll just be mentioning something, and I, like, feel like this huge failure, and then I have to defend. He's like, "Why do you feel like you have to defend this? I'm not
Yes, yeah.
saying that this is bad. I'm just saying, X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, "Well, because you must think I'm horrible because this,"
Yeah,
he's like, "That's not what I'm meaning." Well, that's
yeah,
exactly where I went with that. And when you go in that direction and you feel defensive, it's easy to respond in a way that really you shouldn't, but I also have to remember, like, I'm teaching my kids how to respond the way that I'm responding. They're learning from me.
yeah. Um, but kids know too, they're smart, and so I would just always first of all, I try not to do that. But I'm human, so of course I would, and then I would just correct that, and I would say, "I did not I did not respond to your dad the right way, you know? I should have never said that to your dad. Your dad is always right." And I know there have been times when my kids, um, would speak to me like, and just talking about communication and things that you say and things that you correct right then in the moment in front of them. But I can remember a time that, I don't remember which one it was, but, one of them were talking to me and they weren't using the right tone. And I remember him getting up right in the middle of them and he said, "I'm sorry, that's my wife you're talking to. And you will talk to her, with respect." And so, the way that we communicate and, with each other and in front of each other, so important, not to rehash all that. But I don't know. It's not this thing that you're always gonna do perfect. It's we're flesh and we're always gonna be praying through it. And you would think, going on 30 years that I would know now, but I don't, and sometimes I have to really, pray through it, and I know the importance, like we were just talking about, it's so important to communicate and say how you're feeling, but I have learned in that 30 years, sometimes it's better for me not to say anything right away, and that's hard for me too, because I am a talker, and so I'm like I was telling you, I pushed him that one time. I just wanna get it out, get it out, get it out, but that's not always wise. A fool uttereth his, what's the scripture? The fool uttereth his whole heart, without having some kind of guard there. And so I've learned that sometimes it's just better for me to just kind of take it in for a second and then, pray about it, think about it for a little bit, and then come back and talk to him about it. And like I've said, there have been a few times where I've had to go back and apologize. A lot of times I've had to go back and apologize to him, but even sometimes I've had to go back and apologize to the boys or to Livy and say, you know, I'm sorry I just responded that way to your dad, and we will fix it because we love each other and that's what we do. But I need you to know that wasn't right. That was not right the way that I talked to him because he is my authority and I am submitted to him and I should talk like I'm submitted to him and then use it as a teachable moment. So it's happened to me a
So
lot.
good. Give us off the top of your head just several date ideas that you and Donnie have done together that have been really fun, or it's been romantic, or you just really enjoyed it. It kind of stood out over these past 30 years, something that you guys have done as a couple that would give maybe some of our listeners some ideas as well.
Oh, that's kind of hard. Um, because we do a lot of things, and a lot of things we do, most people wouldn't think that we like shopping, which is even if we don't buy anything, I like just going around and looking, and we like eating a lot, which you can tell. So we do a lot of that, but we have done some crazy things like gone to a fair. We've gone thrifting together. That was kind of fun. Um, Amusement parks. Definitely coffee dates. We love to do coffee dates and run. We love to do shopping. Honestly, a lot of things that we do together is he's very good at like decorating. He's a very creative person. And so he loves doing like projects. He'll say he doesn't, but he does. He'll be like, I just want to get this done. But really, he loves doing that. So, like, we've just recently been changing one of our rooms out from, I'm getting somewhere, but we're changing, it was more like, I don't know what kind of room you'd call it, but we're trying to turn it into more of like a study. So, like, this quaint place that you would love to just kind of sink down in a chair and read your book and do that kind of thing. So, that's his current project. And so, that is what probably most of our date nights will revolve around now for like the next. So it'll be him, emailing or texting me back and forth. Hey, what about this bookshelf? Hey, what about this light? And he's like, hey, you want to go to Marshall's? Let's see if we can find anything for, the new study and look. And honestly, it's not that I don't want my house to look cute. And I do definitely have opinions on the way certain things look. But at the same time, I really don't care. But what I do care about is getting to spend a lot of time with him. And so it's just, a no-brainer. Now I'm gonna get to go to Marshall's and hang out and talk and probably get some for myself along the way and, that kind of day. So coffee dates, um, decorating projects, like working on projects together. And sometimes you don't even have to leave to do that. Like we're already talking about Friday night is youth night for our guys. And so he's like, okay, so Friday night, you want to work on the library a little bit? We can get this, done. And we'll probably order pizza and hang out and do a lot of laughing and, that kind of thing while we're remodeling a room. We've gone ice skating before, just the two of us, and been crazy. Like I said, we've gone to amusement parks. We've done picnics. We don't do a lot of picnics because he doesn't like being hot, and we live in Florida. But we have, done that. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna ask him, and he's gonna be like, "Babe, you should have said this, this, and this," and like,
It's fun. I just thought it'd be
"Better
fun to kind of
fill fill
throw
your."
that in there. Matt and I are the same way as far as just being together really is important. And I think that it's something that can easily be overlooked. You feel like, you have to do all these great things. You're telling him to ask him.
Yeah. What's some of the best dates we've done? Like, what's some ideas of crazy date? Oh, he said, I'm not getting on that podcast and doing all that. I feel like we've gone ice skating. We do a lot of coffee dates. What else?
Antiquing.
Antiquing. I told him that. Thrifting. We've done that a lot.
I don't like thrifting as much, but antiquing, yeah. Just go
Oh,
around and look at houses.
so
Yeah.
that's what Matt and I do.
Okay, probably one of our first like married outings after we were married was in a night we didn't have church. It was a Friday night because we always had church on Friday night. We didn't have church on Friday night, and a lot of our same young married friends around the same time we're building houses. Well, we weren't building a house. So we went to dinner, and then I just wanted to go and look at their different houses, the progress of their houses. And she was so mad because she was like, that is not a date.
Yeah. One time we did, like, we got a few couples that were our age in the church. I think there was like 4 of us, and we just wanted to do something crazy. So we all went in together and we rented a limo. And then
And
we
went
all
to Bennigan.
dressed up and got in a limo, and then we went to some lame restaurant. I can't remember what it was because we couldn't afford the nice restaurant once we all paid for the limo. I think it was like Bennigan's or something like that. But it was fun, and we all have pictures. I still have pictures from that night. We're all laughing, and
That is
uh,
fun. We've done a couple of progressive dinners. I don't know if you guys have ever done one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around Christmas time, we've done those, but not
Yeah.
any other time.
And that's fun too. Like go somewhere for, we just kind of Googled best appetizer in the city, best dessert in the city. And we just went to different things. And it kind of helps the restaurants take a longer amount of time,
Yeah.
So that's fun as well. Well, everything that you have said has been so good. And I knew that it would be, which is why I wanted to ask you to be on the podcast. I knew that everything you would say would be right to me, and it has been. I'm going to be taking some notes on this one. I'm sure Matt will be sending me, okay, re-listen to minute 27 and 37 seconds. Because so much of it was so, so good. You have a marriage that other people can look to. And that is really what it's about, is not just our marriage is a ministry.
Yes.
And how people look at us and the things that they see from us is a ministry in the church. And you guys have a marriage like that. And I'm grateful to be a recipient of being able to watch y'all and look at y'all and think, I want to do these things. I want a marriage like this. So thank you so much. I know you're busy.
Oh, no. I love anytime I get to talk to you and hang out with you, it's a privilege. I'm so honored.
What is one last thing that you would want to leave with all of us in the Unashamedly You community today?
So I think I would just say, when you're in the middle of it all, it's easy for us to step aside for an hour and talk about marriage and, have some notes and say, these are all the things. And that's all true. And that's all right. And that's all great. But really, when you're in the thick of things, sometimes you just kind of want to just be like, are you kidding me? But if you can just keep in your mind, like you said, it is a ministry. We're read among men. People are watching us and looking at us. And, if we want them to love the God that we love, then we need to be, showing that kind of fruit. And we need to think about the fact that I really believe strong marriages create strong families, and strong families create strong churches. And when we have strong churches, revival is just inevitable. And so, and I know I told you earlier, the kids call me sugar glider. So you're like, wow, you're really jumping from strong marriages to revival. But that it really is the case. If we can think about a marriage as the foundational piece and the strength of a strong family, and a strong family is foundational for strong churches, and strong churches are what's going to turn this world right side up, right? Instead of upside down. And so I think that's what I would just, in the middle of it all, just remember, that's what we're reaching for. We're reaching always for revival. That's what life's about: winning souls, living a life for God, being pleasing unto Him. And your marriage can be a huge instrument in revival.
That is exactly what it's all about. Is if if the world is ever going to look to us for anything in this day and hour, it is the marriage.
That's exactly right.
Marriages are nothing. The line is getting more and more distinct between a marriage that was outside of the church and outside of God and without God, and a marriage that is in the church and with God.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely.
Thank you so much again for being on the podcast with me. I love getting to hang out with you too, and we'll see you in a few days in Florida.
Yay! I love you.
Thank you for being a part of the conversations with us over these past few weeks. Whether you have listened to one episode or you've listened to every single one of them, I pray that you feel encouraged, that your heart is strengthened, and that the relationships in your life are blessed because of the knowledge that you have received. If this series blessed you in any way, we would love for you to share it with a friend, a spouse, or someone that could use some encouragement. Do not forget to subscribe so you don't miss what is coming next. And make sure you go and leave a review on Apple or Spotify so that you are entered for the drawing that is going to be happening here at the end of the month. We will make sure and post that. We will make sure and share that on the next podcast episode. 2 of you listeners are going to win smooth sailing. I cannot wait to see who wins. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. And go be unashamedly you.